You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start this show off by eating a heaping bowl full of crow. My least favorite thing to eat on this planet. It wasn't that long ago, after the Giants lost to the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football to fall to 1-7, that I killed the people expressing confidence in them. I didn't understand the confidence in Joe Judge, Daniel Jones, Dave Gettleman. I didn't get any of it. After that game, I said that they had to beat Washington, the Eagles, and the Bengals for me to consider them a legitimate team. They beat those three teams. Not in the most convincing of fashions, but they beat them. After that, they had the Seahawks. A game that I didn't give him any chance of winning. No one gave him a chance of winning. You'd be hard-pressed to find 100 people that thought the Giants had a real chance of winning that game yesterday. But they pulled it out. In the biggest upset of the NFL season so far, the Giants beat the Seahawks 17-12 with Colt McCoy as their starting quarterback, with Wayne Gallman as their bell cow running back. Not their high draft picks, not Jones and not Barkley. The Giants were playing with their B team, and they beat a really good Seahawks team. A Seahawks team that, is dreadful defensively, but has scored the fourth most points out of any NFL team this year. They embarrassed the Seahawks offense. Russell Wilson couldn't get anything going. He was running for his life on every play. He was sacked 5 times. He turned the ball over twice. The Giants limited DK Metcalf. They limited Tyler Lockett. That was the best showing that a Giants defense has had since their second Super Bowl win over Tom Brady. It may be the biggest win that the Giants have had since they won Super Bowl 46. It's either that or Daniel Jones' first start when they beat the Buccaneers. It's one of the two. I have to give the Giants credit. They are not a bad football team. Far from it. They're a solid football team. I wouldn't go as far as to call them good yet. They're still 5-7. But give them credit. They're leading the NFC East. They're half a game up on Washington. Soon to be a game up on Washington because I don't think they're beating the Steelers. The guys who Dave Gettleman brought in are working. No one knew anything about Joe Judge when he was hired. Let me tell you, he's turned the Giants around. They were a laughingstock. They had no accountability. Judge comes in, and you know what? He's holding people accountable. The offensive line was underachieving. Mark Colombo, get out of here. He brings in Dave DeGuglielmo. He didn't care. He didn't care about hurt feelings. He just went out and did it. Patrick Graham has done such a great job with the Giants defense that there is a real chance he gets a head coaching interview or two when the coaching carousel starts a few weeks from now. This Giants defense is otherworldly. For as much heat as I gave Gettleman, a lot of these moves are working out. Dexter Lawrence is having a fantastic sophomore season. Leonard Williams finally looks like the player that we all wanted him to be when the Jets took him at the 6th overall pick. Blake Martinez has been one of the best linebackers in all of football. The guy's in on every play. He's leading the Giants in tackles. It's not even close. James Bradbury, a signing that I didn't like. A massive overpay, I thought. I didn't think he'd be a good number one corner. He's been shutting down some pretty good receivers. Logan Ryan comes in late. He's having a big impact on the Giants. Same thing with a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson, B.J. Hill, Jabril Peppers. I'm telling you, this is the best Giants defense since the 2011 Giants. I'm not saying that they're going to duplicate what the 11 Giants did. You still need a competent offense if you're going to go on a big run in the playoffs. And I don't think Daniel Jones is going to do that, but you know what? Whatever Jason Garrett has done to get the turnovers out of him has worked. Obviously, Jones didn't play yesterday. But in Jones's last 3 games, he hasn't turned the ball over once. That's progress. I still don't like Daniel Jones. The Giants can do better than Daniel Jones. But the Daniel Jones of his last 3 games is night and day different than the Daniel Jones that we saw earlier in the season. If Jones keeps not turning the ball over, there's a real chance that Jason Garrett is going to get another head coaching job. I thought about him on the Jets. I wouldn't hate it. Are there people that I'd want before him? Absolutely, but I wouldn't be upset if Garrett got the Jets head coaching job. This guy's making Wayne Gallman look like the second coming of O.J. Anderson. The last 6 games, Gallman has had a real chance to show what he can do. He scored a touchdown in every single one of those games, except yesterday. Yesterday he didn't score a touchdown. I can live with that, though. You know why? Because he had 16 carries for 135 yards. The offensive line was insane. They actually gave Colt McCoy some time to work and not make stupid decisions. I'm not saying McCoy was that good or anything, but he wasn't dreadful. This is a Giants team that every week is improving. And at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for. No one expected this team to go on a legitimate Super Bowl run. Were there some people that thought they could make a play for the NFC East? Yeah, and they're doing it. As it stands right now, they're the favorites to win the division. I don't think there's a question about that. They don't have an easy schedule coming up. But if they beat the Seahawks, they can beat the Cardinals. They can beat the Browns. They can beat the Ravens. They can definitely beat the Cowboys. This is a solid Giants team. After the Buccaneers game, I was calling for blood. I thought everyone could go. Now they're all coming back. Gettleman is definitely coming back. Judge is definitely coming back. Jones is coming back because those guys are coming back. And with Saquon Barkley fully healthy for next year, watch out for the Giants. They could win the NFC East again. It kills me to say it, but it's the truth. I have to sing the Giants' praises here. That wasn't a Seahawks loss as much as it was a Giants win. I'm not excusing the Seahawks for that performance. Russell Wilson did not play well, but that was because the Giants had such a great defensive game plan. What Patrick Graham put in place and what the players executed was perfect. The exotic blitzes, the coverage downfield, they confused the heck out of Russell Wilson. There's no question about that. It kills me to say this. It really does. I'll be honest with you. After I watched the end of the Giants game, I didn't watch any sports. I watched some shows that I had recorded. Then when I was finished watching those, Philadelphia was on. Never seen Philadelphia. Really good movie. It was a tough night yesterday for me, there's no question about that. Jets with a terrible loss, Giants with a great win. The Patriots destroy the Chargers. The Dolphins win. Times like that, I wish I had other interests besides sports. But the bottom line is, this is a solid Giants team. This is a win that they can hold on to for a while. They've still got to execute in their final 4 games. 5-11 isn't going to get the job done. But we've been saying for a while that 6-10 could. And 7-9 probably will. If the Giants win just 1 or 2 more games, MetLife Stadium is going to have a playoff game. Only the second playoff game in the history of that stadium. The only playoff game MetLife Stadium has ever housed was the Seahawks Super Bowl win over the Broncos in Super Bowl 48. It's very possible the MetLife Stadium could have a second one. Moving on now to the game of the week, Browns-Titans. I've been high on the Browns for a while. As you know, I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan. But I'll be the first person to admit that it's been touch and go for a while. Early this year, Mayfield did not look like a franchise quarterback. He was making bad decisions with the football. There were a bunch of calls for the Browns to bench him for Case Keenum. Think about that for a second. You were the first overall pick. in 2018, and a sizable percentage of your fan base is calling for you to be benched for Case Keenum. Nothing against Keenum. Not a bad player by any stretch, but definitely not a quarterback of the future. If you're a franchise quarterback with a bunch of calls to be benched for him, that's not a good look. And those calls reached a fever pitch in the Battle of Ohio. Browns-Bengals. Mayfield got off to a terrible start, but the Browns stuck with him. Mayfield threw for 5 touchdowns. Led the Browns to a big win. If they had lost that game, they would have been 4-3. That win made them 5-2. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that win saved the Browns' season. After that game, something clicked in Mayfield. He didn't have to be the gunslinger. He just had to be safe with the football. Now, the 3 games after the Bengals game, the Raiders game, the Texans game, and the Eagles game, he didn't look great. Didn't throw a touchdown. 2 of those games he threw for under 140 yards. The other game, the Eagles game, he got sacked 3 times and fumbled twice, turning it over once. But the Browns won all those games with the exception of the Raiders game. Then against the Jaguars, Mayfield came alive. But no one gave him a shot against the Titans. Mike Vrabel's going to have his way with Baker Mayfield. The Titans are going to run the ball down the throat of the Browns. No one was picking the Browns in this game. Except me. I actually picked the Browns in my offline pool. For whatever it's worth, I'm 2-0 so far this week on this show. Let's see what happens with the Steelers. What did Mayfield do in a game with the entire football world watching? He threw 4 touchdowns. He threw for over 330 yards. He completed 25 of his 33 passes. He was taking deep shots when it was warranted. But when he wasn't taking those deep shots, he was making smart decisions. That's something that the Browns offensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt, has stressed to Mayfield. If it's not there, don't force it. Just take the check down. Take the short completion. Live to fight another day. It's worked. The Browns were up 38-7 at the half. Now, the Titans came storming back. In the second half, they outscored the Browns 28-3. Bad job by the Browns defense, and I'd have liked Mayfield to have done more in the second half. But at the end of the day, the Browns got the win. When you put up 41 points, I don't care how you do it, that's an impressive win. And when that win comes against the 4th best team in the NFL last year, and this year, a team that's leading the AFC South, the Titans are in a dogfight with the Colts right now. They're tied at 8-4, but the Titans have the tiebreaker. Make no mistake about it, that is an incredible win. It's a win that Mayfield can shove in the face of his haters. You could tell yesterday he was having fun. Strutting down the field. He loved it. I'm okay with that. If you throw for 4 touchdowns, kid, you can do whatever you want. The Browns are 9-3. They're a legitimate threat in the playoffs. As it stands right now, they'd actually go up against the Titans in the wild card round. Would history repeat itself? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of funny. If the season ended today, every wild card round matchup would be a rematch of a game that we already saw, except Chiefs-Colts. They have not played each other this year yet. But you know what? I don't care who the Browns are playing. They'll play them tough. And they may win. This is a good Browns team. In fact, this is a really good Browns team. I'm sick and tired of the disrespect that they get. Yeah, they've been a laughingstock for a long time, no question. That doesn't mean they're going to be a laughingstock forever. They have a really, really, really good quarterback in Baker Mayfield. They have a smart coach in Kevin Stefanski. They should have hired him last year, no question. They have an elite running game. Chubb and Hunt are the best running back duo in the league. Jarvis Landry is a really talented receiver. Austin Hooper's a really good tight end. The defense could be better, there's no question. But it's enough to make them a real threat in the playoffs. Make no mistake about it. In a month, the Browns will no longer have the longest active playoff drought in the NFL. Neither will the Buccaneers. That honor will go to the Jets. Gotta love it. Moving on now to Eagles-Packers and the long-awaited benching of Carson Wentz happened yesterday. Jalen Hurts came in and really didn't look that good. I'll read you their stats. Wentz completed just 6 of his 15 passes for 79 yards, didn't turn the ball over, was sacked 4 times, and he had 3 carries for 18 yards. Jalen Hurts completed just 5 of his 12 passes for 109 yards. He did throw a touchdown pass to Greg Ward, but he also had an interception. He was sacked 3 times, and he had 5 carries for 29 yards. Wentz had a 57.4 quarterback rating. Hurts had a 67.7 quarterback rating. The Eagles were down 20-3 entering the fourth quarter. In fact, they were down 23-3 at one point. The Eagles made it close. It was a fantastic touchdown pass to Greg Ward. 4th and 18. And Hurts converts it. Give him full credit. Jalen Reagor on the punt return touchdown. Give him credit. But ultimately, the Packers won. What this game should tell you is that Carson Wentz isn't the problem with the Eagles. He's not helping matters. There's no question. The criticism is getting to him. But at the end of the day, the seminal reason that the Eagles are 3-8-1 is their dismal offensive line. It's what I've said before. This isn't on Doug Peterson. This isn't on Wentz. Are they helping matters? Like I said, Wentz isn't. Peterson, you can make the argument he should have gone to Hurts earlier. The Eagles really needed a shot in the arm. But the Eagles have a lot invested in Wentz. He's their franchise quarterback. They gave him a massive contract. It is very hard to bench a franchise quarterback. This isn't a Sam Darnold situation where it's clear he's not the answer. We're not there yet with Wentz. We're getting there. But we're not there yet. I don't think Peterson's the problem. I think the problem is Howie Roseman failing to properly address the offensive line and the Eagles' lack of talent at wide receiver. Do you know how many passes Eagles quarterbacks completed to wide receivers yesterday? 4. 3 to Greg Ward, 1 to Jalen Reagor. The other 7 completions went to tight ends. Dallas Goedert had 5, Zach Ertz had 2. What we are learning with teams like the Buffalo Bills, who traded for Stephon Diggs, and the Arizona Cardinals, who traded for DeAndre Hopkins, is that usually, not all the time, but usually, quarterbacks need great wide receivers to help them out. There are some quarterbacks that can make lemonade out of lemons. I understand that Patrick Mahomes has Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is great. But would he be that good without Mahomes? Sammy Watkins definitely wouldn't be, I'll tell you that. Devontae Adams, same thing. Aaron Rodgers is making guys like Marquise Valdes-Scantling and Alan Lazard look like the second coming of Don Hudson and Donald Driver. It wasn't a bad decision by Peterson to bench Wentz. The Eagles needed a shot in the arm. And it's going to be very interesting to see who starts against the Saints. Doug Peterson hasn't made a decision yet. I'll tell you, I don't envy him. I see it both ways, I really do. I understand sticking with Wentz, since what's happening in Philly really isn't his fault. Again, he's not helping matters, but he's not the seminal reason that things are going south. And I understand starting Jalen Hurts. What's the worst thing that happens? I'll say this, though. My buddy, Joe Caporoso, tweeted out a very interesting idea. In 2017, the Houston Texans traded Brock Osweiler and a second-round pick to the Cleveland Browns. In essence, it was an NBA trade in the NFL. You take on this bad contract, help us clear some salary, and we'll give you a high pick. There were more picks involved in that deal, but that's the crux of the trade. It worked out for both teams. The Texans were able to start Deshaun Watson midway through his rookie year. They traded up to get him. It's something that they probably wouldn't have done if they still had Osweiler. And the Browns got a draft pick that ultimately became Nick Chubb. Caporoso has expanded on that idea. What he said was, and I quote, Jets should take on Wentz's contract for 2 first-round picks from the Eagles and let him back up Lawrence at QB. I don't hate the idea, I'll be honest with you. It depends on if you can squeeze Wentz into your cap while still being able to fill the multitude of holes that you have. The Jets have a ton of holes on defense. They need to add a true number 1 wide receiver. They could stand to get better on the offensive line. But if they can do all that and fit Wentz in, I'm all for it. In fact, I'll take it 2 steps further. The first step is, if they can fill most of their holes, I'll take Wentz. I'll try to fill another hole in the draft. The second step is, Wentz may not even back up Lawrence. I've said this before. A lot of times, the Jets rush these rookie quarterbacks in, and it doesn't work. Mark Sanchez, it didn't work long term. Geno Smith, it didn't work. Sam Darnold, it didn't work. When's the last time the Jets got it right? Chad Pennington. Vinny Testaverde was starting. Pennington had to wait 2 years to get his shot. I'm not saying the Jets are going to make Trevor Lawrence wait 2 years. That's not what I'm saying. But they could do what the Browns did with Mayfield. They could do what the Texans did with Watson. Let a guy like Wentz, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor, Andy Dalton, whoever, start the first few games, and then put Trevor Lawrence in. The baptism by fire approach sometimes works. Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Andrew Luck, but more often than not, it doesn't. Don't force Lawrence in before he's ready. If Lawrence balls out in training camp and balls out in the preseason, yes, start him week 1. But if it would benefit him to sit for a little bit to learn, roll with a guy like Wentz. Don't force it. That's the worst thing you could do. Alright, now would be the time that I preview the Washington Steelers game, but I'm not going to do that. I've talked about it before, and B, I want to talk about a couple interesting NFL stories. The first one is that according to Ian Rappaport of NFL.com, Anthony Lynn is on the hot seat. That report came out before the Patriots destroyed the Chargers. So if Lynn was on the hot seat, he is now on the burning seat. At the end of the day, what's doomed the Chargers for time immemorial is what's gonna result in Lynn's dismissal. If Rappaport's report is accurate, and I have no reason to think it's not. Ian Rappaport is one of the best at what he does. But at the end of the day, he has just had these heartbreaking losses. Marty Schottenheimer had him. Don Coryell had him. Mike McCoy had him. Norv Turner had him. Lynn's not immune to it. Now, I don't think Lynn is a bad coach. He did a good job with Phillip Rivers towards the end. Did a solid job with Melvin Gordon. Keenan Allen under Lynn has turned into one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And Lynn does have a playoff win under his belt. Lamar Jackson's first ever NFL playoff game, the Chargers beat him. Then the Chargers put up 28 points against the Patriots, but it didn't matter because the Patriots put up 41. More than anything, though, Lynn has done a great job with Justin Herbert. Here's a guy who was forced into starting before anyone really wanted him to because a Chargers doctor punctured Taylor's lung, and Taylor isn't suing over it. Gotta love it. But Herbert has completed just under 65% of his passes. He's already thrown for over 3,200 yards. He's thrown 23 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Herbert looks like the real deal. Lynn deserves some credit for that. I don't think it's in the Chargers' best interest to fire Lynn. I really don't. Tom Telesco, when he let Phillip Rivers go, when he let Melvin Gordon go, signaled to everyone that this is a rebuilding year. We're going to build for the future. Well, you're doing that. You have your guy. Justin Herbert looks like the real deal. Think about this. The Chargers went from Drew Brees to Phillip Rivers to Justin Herbert. That's the kind of thing that NFL pundits can only dream of. This isn't Lynn's fault what's happening. The Chargers just don't have a great roster. Austin Eckler's been hurt. He's only played in 6 games. He was supposed to be a big part of what the Chargers did this year. Joshua Kelly looks dreadful. The Chargers have had to start Kalen Ballage. Kalen Ballage was cut by the Jets this year. That's how bad he is. Adam Gase, his former coach, when they were both with the Dolphins, had no problem cutting him. Mike Williams has had a disappointing season. I'm not saying he's bad or anything, but this guy had a 1,000-yard season last year and led the NFL in yards per catch. I don't think he's going to do that again. Hunter Henry is a really good tight end, but he's a free agent. You take a look at the Chargers' defense outside of Joey Bosa and Denzel Perryman. The Chargers have nothing. Desmond King has only played in 6 games. Melvin Ingram's only played in 7. Justin Jones has only played in 9. Kenneth Murray has not had a good rookie season. I'm not even blaming Tom Telesco for this. He built for the future. Okay, fine. Stick with it. You can't punish a coach for losing when you're building for the future. You're saying to your fan base, we're looking to the future. That's what you did when you let Rivers and Gordon go. Should you be better than 3-9 with a quarterback like Herbert? The answer is yes. But with that dreadful running game and a defense that's been bitten by the injury bug, it cancels that out. I wouldn't let Lynn go. And if he is let go, the Jets could have some interest in him. Go back to his old stomping grounds. Speaking of the Jets, they finally fired someone. No, it is not Adam Gase. It is not Dowell Loggins. It is Greg Williams. He is gone. At the end of the day, this had to happen. I'll get to the final play that he called in a minute. But what Greg Williams did as a defensive coordinator is really the cardinal sin of any NFL coach. He didn't adjust his scheme for his personnel. Williams was just too aggressive. Every play he was sending blitzers. So that left these bad Jets corners in man-to-man situations. You don't want guys like Bryce Hall, Lamar Jackson, Pierre Desir, and Arthur Mollett in those kinds of situations. You just don't. They will get burned constantly. This guy kept dropping linebackers into coverage at least once a game. You could count on Neville Hewitt being burned. You saw the inability to defend Darren Waller yesterday. Sending pressure in a situation where you know Derek Carr is going to take a deep shot. Greg Williams had to go. It's just that simple. This defense suffered a big regression. There's no question about that. You want to tell me that this isn't all his fault, that the Jets have no talent on defense? You're right. But it's up to the coordinator to hide that. Here's how you can do that. Drop a lot of people back into coverage. If you want to blitz an outside linebacker or two, I don't mind that. But you've got to drop 6, 7, even 8 into coverage most of the time. Because these Jets corners need a ton of help. At the end of the day, Greg Williams just kept doing the same old thing. It didn't work. There were no adjustments. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. This is a guy who a bunch of people attributed last year's 7-9 record to. Now, he's out of a job. He got fired before Adam Gase. Think about that. There is one other thing that I want to hit on, though. Some people said that the reason Greg Williams made that call is because he was tanking. I think that's a ridiculous notion. Coaches don't tank. Players don't tank. Executives tank. There is no coach in the world that wants a losing record on his ledger. There is no player that is going to say, okay, I'm not going to play to the best of my ability. It is the front office that does that. That doesn't do what they can in the offseason. That trades players away. And they're the ones who say to their fan base, yeah, we're okay with losing this year. Not the coach. Also, what about Greg Williams' demeanor tells you he's okay with tanking? I can say with a fair degree of confidence that if Joe Douglas went up to Greg Williams and told him, hey, throw this game away, Greg Williams may punch him. Or worse, put out a bounty on him. Greg Williams wasn't tanking yesterday. He just made an incredibly asinine play call at the end of the game. And he deserved to be punished for it. Alright, now it's time to preview Bills 49ers. Greg Williams' former team. He used to coach the Bills. Josh Allen used to get a lot of heat. He was viewed as a guy who was inaccurate, didn't have what it took to be a franchise quarterback. I never bought it. And he's proven all those people wrong. He's completed just under 69% of his passes this year. He's already thrown for over 3,000 yards. He has 22 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. And I have to say this, he's 6'5", 237 pounds. He can run just as well as any running back in the league. Allen's averaging 3.8 yards per carry. That's pretty good for a quarterback. And he has 6 touchdowns. More touchdowns than any Bill this year. He is the real deal. The Bills have their guy. There's no question about it. As for his supporting cast, it's pretty good. I like Devin Singletary. I understand he only has 483 rushing yards, but he's averaging just under 4.5 yards per carry. That's not bad. He's being forced to share time with Allen and Zach Moss. And Moss is a pretty good backup running back, I'll say that. He actually has more touchdowns than Singletary. But all in all, the Bills' rushing attack is fine, even excluding Allen. Those guys can hold their own. The wide receivers are great. Stephon Diggs, like I said before, that was a fantastic trade. Cole Beasley's having a really good season. Gabriel Davis looks like he's going to be a really good receiver in this league for a long time. This is a scary Bills offense. It's why Brian Daboll is getting a lot of head coaching buzz. Wouldn't mind him on the Jets. I'm going to put together a firm list. And you'll get that during my Jets off-season preview. Which I've already started preparing for, unfortunately. One thing that doesn't get as much credit, though, for the Bills' offensive success is their offensive line. It is fantastic. One of the best in football, if not the best. Dion Dawkins, Ike Betcher, Mitch Morse. Brian Winters is filling in for Cody Ford since Ford is hurt. And Winters hasn't been great. He's committing a lot of penalties. But Darrell Williams more than makes up for that. This is a fantastic Bills offensive line. They're helping out Allen a lot. Defensively, though, the Bills are struggling. Outside of Jerry Hughes, do they really have anyone that scares you? Does Tre'Davious White scare you? He's not having a great season. He's still really good. I take him on the Jets in a heartbeat. But he only has a 69.2 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. He should be better than that. Jordan Poyer, a 69.7 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. He should be better than that. As punishment, you need to let me spend a night with your wife. Oh, that's funny. I make myself laugh if I don't make anyone else laugh. But look, this is a struggling Bills defense. Make no mistake about it. The Niners should be able to take advantage of it, even with their diminished core. Obviously, they don't have Garoppolo, they don't have Kittle, but Brandon Ayuk is coming back. I like him a lot. Raheem Mostert is back. I like him a lot, even though what he did in the offseason with his contract kind of ticked me off. The Niners' offense should be able to score against the Bills. Keyword should. It's not a guarantee. But they have the pieces necessary to do it. I'd expect Kyle Shanahan to come up with a solid scheme to help Nick Mullins pull out the victory. When you look at their offensive line, it's good, but it's not great. They have Trent Williams, they have Mike McGlinchey, and they have Laken Tomlinson. I understand that's more than half of the offensive line, but that still leaves you room to take advantage of if you're a defensive lineman. I don't trust Tom Compton, and I don't trust Daniel Brunskill. I'd expect Sean McDermott to go after them hard. Defensively, the Niners have been decimated by injuries also, but Robert Saleh has done a great job of keeping them in it. Fred Warner's having a great year. So is Jason Verrett. Jimmy Ward is also. Eric Armstead is as well. Jordan Willis, The former Jet has been playing well, as has Kerry Hyder. But ultimately, the Niners are just too hurt by injuries. They're going to rely on too many, for lack of a better term, replacement-level players to beat this really good Bills team. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. This is going to be a very good coaching matchup. I'm going to be very interested to watch what schemes are played. But I think the Bills have it. Alright, now I'll give you some college football Valk talk. And I'll start with a game that I was completely wrong about. Indiana-Wisconsin. I thought Wisconsin would easily win this game. With Michael Penix out, I didn't think Jack Tuttle would be able to carry the load. But give Tuttle credit. He wasn't electric or anything, but he put the Hoosiers in a really good position to win. That's all you can ask for from a backup quarterback. He completed 13 of his 22 passes. He threw 2 touchdowns. He was safe with the football. That's all you can ask for. Indiana's offense wasn't that good. Stevie Scott underwhelmed. Whop Phillier underwhelmed. Ty Freifogel only had 1 catch. Peyton Hendershot underwhelmed. It was the Hoosiers' defense that stepped up. Micah McFadden had a fantastic game. So did James Miller, Taiwan Mullen, Jamar Johnson. They didn't let Wisconsin get anything going. I like Graham Mertz. I really do. But he played like garbage in this game. That's a bad look for him. Like I always say, I want to see how you play under the bright lights with the entire college football world watching. Make no mistake about it. The entire college football world was watching that game, and Mertz did not play well. Didn't throw a touchdown, threw an interception. Jalen Berger was the best Badger, offensively speaking. Mertz got Jake Ferguson involved, give him credit. But Mertz also had a lost fumble. Bad game for Mertz. You can't say that enough. Berger and Ferguson showed up, give them credit. Give Leo Chenal a ton of credit. He had 10 tackles. He was all over the field. Him and Jack Sanborn had a fantastic game at the linebacker position. But ultimately, this was a huge win for Indiana. It keeps their Big Ten title hopes alive. Give the Hoosiers credit. They played a great game. Moving on now to BYU versus Coastal Carolina. A battle of the undefeateds. An incredibly close game. A game that went down right to the wire. Dax Milne, so close to the end zone on the last play, but he was stopped short. Shades of Kevin Dyson in the Rams-Titans Super Bowl. Both teams played really well. Zach Wilson had a solid game, completed 19 of his 30 passes for 240 yards. He had a touchdown, but he also had an interception. I've seen Wilson play better, but it wasn't a bad game. He also had 10 carries for 55 yards. But the star of the Cougars' running game was Tyler Algier. He had 13 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. Algier has had a touchdown in every game this season except for BYU's win over Troy. While Milne couldn't reach his arms across the goal line, he still had a really good game. 6 catches for 106 yards and a touchdown. Gunnar Romney was solid, 4 catches for 47 yards. Neil Pau'u came out of nowhere to have a solid game. He outplayed Romney. I didn't see that coming. 4 catches for 76 yards. But ultimately, you've got to give Coastal Carolina a ton of credit. The adjustments that Jamie Chadwell made were incredible. Grayson McCall couldn't dare the ball out. He only had 85 passing yards. So what are we going to do? We're going to run it. Who's going to run it? Exactly. Coastal Carolina had 4 really good runners yesterday. McCall, 12 carries for 68 yards. Reese White, 12 carries for 53 yards. Shamari Jones, 7 carries for 28 yards. And their MVP on Saturday, CJ Marable, had 23 carries for 132 yards. That was by far and away his best game of the season. They confused the daylights out of BYU. It was a great job of coaching by Chadwell. He's going to have his pick of any college job he wants at the end of this season. BYU played well, give them credit. But make no mistake about it, Coastal Carolina was better, and they're going to be in a big bowl game because of it. There is one other game that I want to talk about, and I'm saving it for last because it only featured one ranked team. And that was Rice's shutout of Marshall. I went on a rant on Friday about how much I like undefeated teams. I don't care about the quality of the competition. It still takes skill. And I stand by that. But holy hell, was it infuriating to watch Marshall on Saturday. There is no excuse to get shut out by Rice. I'll be the first person to tell you I don't know a whole hell of a lot about Rice. I mean, they're 2-2. They're not a great team by any stretch. I know that they've gotten screwed over by the coronavirus. I don't know if they had an outbreak or their opponents had outbreaks or a combination of the two. But they had a lot of games postponed because of the coronavirus. That's pretty much it. That's all I know about Rice. But they humiliated Marshall in this game. The Owls' defense was insane. It was one of the best defensive performances I've seen in college football all year. They made Grant Wells a good college quarterback. A guy who had only thrown 4 interceptions entering that game throw 5. They did a great job of getting pressure on Wells. They confused him to no end. He made disastrous decisions. This isn't an earth-shattering upset or anything because Marshall wasn't going to be in the CFP hunt or a New Year's Six Bowl. But this is a big upset. This is a Rice team that no one knew anything about beating an undefeated Thundering Herd team. Give Mike Bloomgren a ton of credit. Rice had a great game plan. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that there's such a 500 club they could probably split a 3-game series.